Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today's guest is Jackson Godding. Jackson is a leading trauma specialist, psychotherapist, and the founder of Find Reason Therapy. Jackson is on a mission to raise the gold standard of trauma work and help other practitioners reclaim their self-worth so they can lead clients through trauma with depth, safety, and lasting results. He's known for pioneering practitioner mentorships that fuse deep experiential healing with world-class trauma healing. Through his signature self-worth model, transformational retreats, and high-level programs like Authenticate and It Ends With Us, Jackson refines nuanced and intricate leaders to do trauma work properly in their lives, their bodies, and their legacies. Wow, I am so excited to hear what Jackson has to share with us today. So Jackson, welcome to Behind the Smile. How are you today?
Sounds so good when you say it out loud. I'm like, yeah, that is me. How good.
It's seriously impressive. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's go there, right?
Yeah. So I'm great now. I feel like
Yeah.
I just got like a walkout. So I'm feeling really
The
good. And
lights are on.
yeah, let's do it. I'm honored to be here. I've wanted to be on this one for a while and been watching what you're doing as well, and love that we get to deepen and have a chat.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be an awesome conversation. So let's kick it straight off. Our audience would love to know, where do you live? What does an average day look like for you? And what do you do for fun?
Cool. Good question. I at the moment live in Sydney, and I live about 2 minutes away from my clinic. So it's really convenient now. I've worked all over the place and now I get to walk to work. So that's amazing. And I guess I've been here my whole life, and I've had a big, long calling to go into the country. And I think we're at a point where I'm making moves to go down there. So I guess my idea of fun is to probably live like I'm already there. Like I like to live very, very chill and slow, which is, we'll find out that my life wasn't really that for a long time. So
Yeah.
finding a lot of balance is a big part of what keeps me all lit up. And then what do I love to do? I guess, it's a lot of that sort of thing. So just connecting mostly is my go-to, and being present with the people that I really love and care about. And I love to eat. I am a big eater. So
Amen.
connection and food is kind of like, stick a fork in me and then I'm good for life.
Yes. Oh my goodness. When people are like, what are your hobbies? I'm literally like, fine dining. Like,
Yeah.
I love nothing more
Mm-hmm.
than getting dressed up, going to a beautiful restaurant with a few friends, having that connection, that conversation. And it's so funny because I thought that would be something that I would lose interest in when I stopped drinking. But I actually enjoy it more. I actually like, because I'm so
Yeah.
present now, I can actually taste the flavors of the food properly. I'm not ducking off to the bathroom to try and have a line of cocaine. Like
Yeah. And then can't eat.
yeah, and then you can't eat. It's just such a better experience. So, yes, amen to food and connection. I'm so interested to know, where are you thinking of moving? Are you going like South Coast?
I am. Well, South Coast would be even more the dream, to get like land meet sea. But I think we're going to go Southern Highlands. My fiance's, um, been from there. So we're sort of heading back towards that way. And then,
Nice.
I mean, the dream for me is to build my retreat, and have host retreats and then run retreats, and just have a place where people can come home to themselves. And that's going to hopefully be in the same sort of area. So the Southern Highlands at the moment looks like probably like Mittagong,
Mm.
if you know that way. But
Yeah.
I think anywhere at the moment down there will just be a nice breath of fresh air, literally. And then like my tiny little home is so expensive, and I just want to put my feet on the ground and like be able to yell and no one's like, what was that?
Yes.
So some space and peace and quiet, and then my garden, and I really want some goats.
Yes. Or what about
It's
alpacas? I feel like everyone that way has alpacas.
yeah. I mean, if I'm not going to have some, they're going to be right next door anyway, competing with
Yes.
my goats probably. But that's the dream. So we're just like making, I live like I'm already there as much as I can, but
Mm.
now we're like, what if we just did it?
Yeah.
So
Just
it's
take the
getting
leap.
closer, getting closer.
Wow. That's amazing. I remember living in Sydney for 8 years. It is so wildly expensive, isn't it? And just being able to, I mean, I came back to Melbourne, which is still a big city compared to where you're looking to go. But even then, I just felt that slowing down of pace, it's less of a rat race, it's less financially draining. You know, your money goes a little bit further. So, yeah, that's super exciting. I can't
Yeah.
wait to hear how it goes. Okay. So, what does an average day look like for you, Jackson? Because I'm guessing no 2 days are really the same.
No, I've kind of always tried to make sure I can live like that in dysfunction and function. But I think that an average day, you're right, doesn't ever really look the same. But I guess, as I've sort of said a couple of times already, if I like to look at like where I want to end up and what I want to, tangibly have, which is all well and good. It's like, what's that actually going to feel like? And I think for me, it's like bliss, content, free, peaceful, lots of love and joy. And I kind of just go, well, why can't I just do that now and just do whatever that sort of moves like within the realms of having to fucking pay bills and whatever. But like, I still got my attachments, but as much as I can, I'm kind of doing that. So a day to day, generally, I'll sit outside, watch the wind, and have a coffee, and just slow down. And as much as it is the rat race and it's expensive, blah blah blah, I try and separate so much from that even here.
Mm.
Just being able to kind of take my time, and then I'll stroll into work and see a client, and I'll stroll back here and do something like this online, or I'll see some clients online, and then just create and make some moves, move dial forward a little bit more on being able to kind of, live in alignment and work towards the mission inside the business, but also in my relationships, in my health, and in my lifestyle as well.
I'm curious, how far down the rabbit hole have you gone with quantum physics and Joe Dispenza? And,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah.
hear a lot
You
of
can
it.
hear it in the language, right? So I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot of influence more and more. I think for
Yeah.
me, it's like, having done a lot of therapy on myself now and done so many different modalities and, ways of just like tuning up and cracking me open. I think the final boss for me, and I'm sure we'll talk about this when we come to addiction, but it's like powerlessness. So it's like,
Mm,
if I can be okay with powerlessness, then I'm in like ultimate surrender. So it's like, if what I want my reality to look like, and what's that going to look like? So the hardest thing I do every single day is meditate,
mm.
because I don't want to be still and all my mind is saying, do this, do this, do this. So yeah, I think that practice of letting go and surrender is like, if that's the hardest thing I'm doing, I can take on quite a lot. And I do
Mm.
take on quite a lot, but it's still nowhere near as hard as the battle that I go in every day with me going, we have other things to do, you know?
Battle in the mind, right? And that I imagine as well, running your own business and having clients and working in the field that you do, there would be a constant internal push pull of, wanting to work harder and strive and achieve more, but at the same time, having the knowledge that that's not, working harder doesn't equal more happiness. In fact, often it's what you're doing in the slowing down and the being in contentment and finding that peace in everyday life, that's the sweet spot that I think a lot of us miss because we're just constantly looking outside of ourselves for when I get that, then I'll be happy.
Yeah. If then what? It's like, well, what if we flipped it and kind of lived already like we were there, right? So I think that comes hand in hand. And I think, yes, I'm conditioned that way, whether I was in this business or the next business, I'm literally conditioned to kind of move and fix and change and control and do what I can to not feel uncomfortable. So it's constant, just resistance to that. It's like,
Mm,
I'm going to be uncomfortable if I sit still, that's my work. Right. And that's something that I meet every day, so
mm,
it's,
mm.
it's a fun little dance that's not been always very fun. Now it's a bit more playful and like a nice art.
Yeah. And what about with, you mentioned meditation's been part of your discipline and your practice to getting to this place. And you also mentioned that you don't necessarily find it super palatable. And I think for most people that I speak to, they have the same experience. It's really quite uncomfortable. I'm curious because everyone has a different approach to their meditation practice. What does it currently look like for you?
I've been teaching meditation for years and was like, but I don't do it, like a classic, do as I say, not as I do sort of thing. And it wasn't until I found like there's really not much technique to it. It's literally just the explanation of the technique that makes it effective for me. And this is probably going to be really helpful for listeners, but I guess it's like, for me, was such an eye-opening reality that was like, why don't I meditate? Oh, it's because I don't want to be still. Like, I don't want to be that quiet or still. And well, why don't I want to meditate? It's because I'm uncomfortable when I meditate. And then I start going, well, what? Like, that's the exact reason why I should be. And sitting with the ability to be able to become more okay with stillness. When we talk about legacy, it's like, do I want to pass on chaos to my kid or calm to my kid? And that's like, well, then that's the practice. And then I guess the other way that really tipped me over the edge of being able to go, all right, I'll do this and I'll commit to this effortless practice is the effortlessness. My life is filled with effort. And this one thing that I do for 20 minutes, 5 days a week, not even 7, is the only effortlessness thing that I do. And if we look at effort and effortlessness as yin and yang, it's not balanced for most people. So it's that conviction that helps me meditate. That doesn't mean I like doing it. That doesn't mean I necessarily get anything in the moment from it. But as long as that truth is there for me, that's why I do it. Because, if I'm waiting for something good to happen after the 20 minutes, then I'm never going to commit to it because it doesn't happen.
So true. It's not an instant payoff, but it is that discipline of that consistency over time that creates, for me anyway, that real sense of peace and calm in my body.
Yeah.
And like you
Yeah.
so beautifully put it, learning to sit in the discomfort, because the reality of life is that we are going to move through discomfort. It's just, unless you stay inside all day long and hide yourself from the world, although you'll probably still find discomfort. It's like,
Totally.
how do we learn to approach that and not have it cause complete internal chaos? Thank you for sharing that. That's unreal. All right, Jackson, I've asked you to bring in a photo today. Now, this is a photo from a time in your life where you were hiding behind a smile. So you were presenting one version of yourself externally, but internally you were struggling. Could you please first describe for our audience the photo that I'm bringing up on the screen right now? What are we looking at here? And then please tell us what was truly going on for you at that time in your life.
Okay. Let me set the scene for everybody. The photo is just me about to walk into work to do what I do now in tears. Just in tears, I really wanted to capture it. So I filmed it. It wasn't for Instagram. It was just for like a time capsule kind of piece of absolute despair for me that I honored and acknowledged that this was what I was feeling and what was happening for me. So I'm in my work shirt and it just looks so incongruent. Like, what? How is this therapist in this sort of pain? And I could have chosen, actually don't have that many, but like I could have chosen so many moments in time or photos in time that represented this thing. And I was very conscious around choosing this because it is actually really recent in the scheme of my life of recovery. And I put it there because I still struggle a lot. Like there is new levels of struggle that I meet. I'm not enlightened. I'm not free from triggers. I don't believe you can be fully healed. I don't believe that there is such a thing, which means that I will meet more resistance. I will meet more discomfort. I will potentially have the little parts of me that say, we're going to act this way today and we're going to care this much today. And then that wins compared to my functional adult authentic self that wants to lead and show up for the most part and reparent those little parts. So I put that there because that's not even the most recent, like really tough struggle that was going on for me. And that doesn't make me like this yo-yo dysfunctional human being. It, I guess, it's recovery, not recovered. It's an ongoing process for me of meeting where it is. Now, if I get a little bit more, just to kind of preface it with that, but then deepen it, is probably the biggest struggle that I met in probably that chapter and probably, let's just go with that. I was moving in with my now fiance for the first time, where it was like, no questions asked. If I'm going to move in with you, I'm going to be with you forever. I'm not fucking around. Like that's what it meant. It was a commitment that pretty much meant I'm not going to start and share my life and buy all these things with you, not to marry you and not to be a life partner to you for forever. So for me, that move, and we'd had our different struggles, but I guess that represented quite a big thing for me, which was like how much my relationship mirrored all the shit that, and it's happened many times in the beauty of relationship. It's like that just shows where I still had little gaps and places that were not checked. And I'm like, and I always say to my supervisor, I'm like, why am I still doing the fucking work? Like, surely I shouldn't have to keep doing. And, she taught me so much. It's this huge mirror that's still a beautiful mirror for me that brings up all my shit. Yes, it's less intense now and it's less, shame isn't necessarily there in a big way, but it still exists. So I think for me, it was like another leveling up phase of of my whole recovery journey, where it's like I spent a long time without relationship on purpose to really deepen me and, meet what I needed to meet. And then this beautiful angel comes into my life that starts triggering the shit out of me for some of the stuff that I, hadn't quite met. And that is exactly what was meant to happen, no matter who I was going to spend my life with, that this part was like, and now we get to try and change how we want to do that. And she's still here, so we did kind of work through that. So that was off the back end of being the best I've ever been, so finally free from so much of my trauma, so separated from so much, and yet relationship, reminders, old wounds, that she brings all of her shit to the table and I bring all of my shit to the table, and then we try and be in relationship. So that particular chapter was like, oh my God, I'm back. I'm back feeling like I haven't done a single day of recovery,
Relationships are so potent like that, aren't they? Like they really do, like you said, mirror where the work is yet to be done. What are the things, like if somebody's bringing, your intimate partner is bringing something up in you, like causing you to feel resentful or frustrated or angry or, self-pity, like if only they would do this or that, or it's not fair. Like, what is the lesson for you?
What's the gift?
That's the gift. It really is. And that's where we get to step into this place of empowerment rather than victimhood of like, okay, well, I can either step up or step out. Like, you've got two choices in any given situation, but if you're willing to do the work, then there's always opportunity to grow. Although I do think as well, though, it's important to have a partner who's wanting and willing to grow with you. What do you like? When you look at relationships and, perhaps one person's in recovery and the other's not, like, where do you think the complexities lie there?
A big spectrum, right? I think, for me, if someone, there's plenty of people out there, unfortunately, not in my corners of the world, but they don't believe in therapy, for example. It's like, I just wouldn't be in a relationship with someone that didn't necessarily understand mental health and even more so trauma, right? So I couldn't relate. I couldn't have an experience with the person that I want to be intimate with if that's not at least in some way, shape or form met. And then the spectrum kind of goes from there. So I think for me, it's like I have been in many, many relationships. I'm codependent as fuck. Like I definitely met those challenges and wasn't ready to move through it. I've met them and convinced myself that I did it in the right way. I stayed way longer than I needed to because that was more important. So like that wasn't necessarily because they were or weren't ready to meet me in that. It wouldn't have mattered. I said, for 4 years to some of the very, very beautiful people that are still in my life that I'm like, I can't take the risk. Not because of what I see in you, because I know what happens to me. And I'm not at a place that I know whether it does or it doesn't, that I'll have my own back and be able to work through it. So I think that is what I bring to the table, which I hopefully mirror to the other person, which invites them into their own stuff. My partner's not been in therapy for 10 years like me. And yet the growth that she's done since starting is like, why didn't I get that far in, you know, you know, but it's like she's really met where she's wanting to meet. And I guess I put that out there and invited that that's possible and mirrored that to her. But then, yeah, we did all of her work and I've been there doing all of her work, which then brings up all of my work. So I think it is really sacred stuff. You're a witness to my life, which means you're going to see me in all ways. And it doesn't matter how far along the journey I am to being able to be in conflict or different dynamics or work with still going to meet my pain with you. I'm kind of still going to do that. So I think it's very important early on for me in terms of how do I get that clarity there to ensure that somebody else knows. And that's what a lot of my people are kind of almost isolating themselves because of the work that they do on themselves, because then they go, there's a lot of people that aren't going to be for me now, you know, and we meet that loneliness too and say, yeah, that's potentially you've just halved your pool.
The dating pool just got even smaller.
Yeah.
From those who might be awakened and those who are still fast asleep.
Yeah. I mean, I saw this reel this morning. It was so good. It was like, I don't want to see you know, how tall your dad is or whether your mum has, you know, hair or still. I want to see your brain scan of your prefrontal cortex. And I'm like, yeah.
Your Hinge profile, please.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and people are starting to be really conscious like that. And that's, you know, there's moderation that's needed with all of that as well.
Yeah, of
Otherwise,
course.
you'll never meet the expectations that you hold too highly. But we're all perfectly imperfect, as I know that you know.
As Pia tells us. Hey, Jackson, I have had the pleasure of speaking to many, many therapists over the last 6 or so years. And one of the common threads that I find is that people like yourself get into the work that you do through a conscious or unconscious desire to heal oneself. So I'm curious to know, what was it in your life, the experiences, the traumas that led you to want to become a therapist and step into this space that you are in right now?
This is honestly why I work with more and more therapists and coaches and facilitators now, because of this truth. And I think anyone that works in this field is here because of something that's gone on in their experiences, for better or for worse. If the stuff that didn't go on for me didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. Like I actually, wouldn't be here, but I definitely wouldn't be a therapist. So one of the like kings of South Pacific Private in Kelco that we both know quite well, Trauma Treatment Center, was my supervisor and therapist for a while. And he told me why he was a therapist, because I'd been telling everybody that I just wanted to help people. And then he told me why he was. And then I was like, I needed to be needed. I really needed to be needed. And I didn't get the emotional connection and nurturance that I needed when I was little. So I started to create a core belief that I didn't matter, that I was not good enough, or that I was unlovable. So that wound didn't want to be felt. So I adapted. And then my little team that kind of stepped in to protect was like, we're going to do whatever it takes to matter. We're going to do whatever it takes to be good enough. I'm going to do whatever it takes to be lovable. So I got really, really good at being everyone's best friend, everyone's go-to person, like the class clown. Like you can go through the ages of how I age appropriately probably met some of that stuff. And it was in a lot of really beautiful ways and a lot of really horrific ways. And I think that was all to make sure that I could find worth, and I did whatever it took to be worthy. So that I was a therapist before I was, you know, anything really. That was my identity, as I was like, I will do what it takes to be loved. And I was the guy that you could get fucked up with. I was the guy that, you know, could get you the drugs. I was the guy that was, available for all the people, for all the girls, you know, while I was in a relationship. I was just there to meet the needs of others because then I would feel worthy.
Mm,
and I got really, really good at it.
mm.
So I think the more that I own that that was my experience that was built on survival and not necessarily knowing any other way, that I ran with a thread that felt true and real and important.
Mm.
Yeah, it was very unconscious. I didn't really recognize it until I was in a very, very dysfunctional relationship that mirrored so much stuff to me that I was like, that's just because she was not well. And that's the load of shit. Like, I wouldn't have been with someone to that was, dysfunctional or not healthy. Like, unless there was something going on with me. Functional people don't stay with dysfunctional people.
This
That
is
doesn't make any
so
sense.
true. I remember my brother telling me this once, and this was years ago when I was in a relationship with somebody who wasn't very well. And because I always identified as a bit of a rescuer and wanting to, find these broken men and I would fix them kind of thing. And my brother so kindly shone a light on just the reality of that I basically was attracting into my field the same energetic frequency that that person was. I was no better. I was no more healed, no more evolved, because truth be told, if I actually was in a healthy, functional adult space, I would have seen that person and realized that, they had their own work to do and that wasn't up to me to save them.
Hmm?
Like I needed to put my oxygen mask on and focus on my own stuff, at the time, maybe have a look at my drinking and everything else that I was doing to self-abandon. But yeah, it's amazing how much we can almost bolster ourselves up by thinking that we're in it to help that other person when the reality is we're getting just as much out of the exchange. So if it's sickness, then that's what's being exchanged is sickness.
The way that I put it, which can be hard to hear, I guess the truth of it can be hard, but I share it anyway. And maybe it relates to something that you can reflect on as well, Ash. But I guess it's like, for me, if I could convince a dysfunctional person to stay and to come home, and I could figure out how to continue to be in a relationship with them, then I'd win against my trauma, because I couldn't get my dad to do that. I couldn't get my dad to come home. I couldn't get my dad to love me enough, which is the story that I made up, to come back. So if I can do that with these people that need to be fixed, saved, and rescued, then I win.
Mm,
And that became a very, very, very strong battle for my whole entire life. And if I'm
mm,
not careful, I can really easily slip back into that as well. And that photo is when I started to go, she's not my fucking dad. She's just going through her own stuff, which makes
mm,
her go into her own avoidance and separate just a tiny bit that leaves me again.
mm.
So for me, it's like, I very much want to win against my trauma, and most do unconsciously. So
Mm.
they keep trying to find a way to win.
And you mentioned before this core belief of, I think you mentioned unworthiness. I'm curious to know. So I've just been doing a whole deep dive into core beliefs at the moment because I'm in the process of writing my memoir. And, I really understand how core belief is like the lens through which I perceive the world. And often that is based on childhood experiences. And I'm curious to know because I feel like I've got a couple, maybe three, but the overarching one would definitely be that sense of being unworthy. What do you think yours are, and do they still present themselves today, or do you feel like you've done the work, even though we know the work is never done?
Yeah, I was going to say, Ash, there's no such thing as done, right? So depending on which lens you look at this, I think it's going to determine how much grief there is around it. But I look at core beliefs as the manifestation of our shame, how it looks and lives in its physical form or mental form. So as I said before, mine are, I don't matter, I'm not good enough, and I'm unlovable. And they're all tied to the same sort of thing. And that's all under the banner of worth. Me saying that sort of thing to myself is a shaming message to me. That I'm not worthy to be here is shame. I'm shaming me. But I believed it. I don't think about it as shame and worthiness. It's just that this is my identity. This is how and then I form more evidence to make that true over and over and over again until it's really concrete. Shame is an emotion. You can't get rid of it. It's going to be there just like all emotions, and the waves will come and then they will go. Now, it's a core belief. Well, if you didn't show up today and we were in a much stronger relationship, it really, really mattered, and that would have to really would have to tick a couple of boxes to impact me that way, then I could share with you, Ash, when you didn't show up. What I think about me is I'm not good enough, right? And I feel shame and pain around that. That's never going. But I'm very different about how I just communicated that with you compared to how I show up in the past about it. So how I can be with me now is very different to how, and again, I use the analogy a lot, like my teenager tugging at my shirt or my little boy tugging at my shirt going, alarm bells, she's rejected us, she's abandoned us. We're alone again. This is what this means to them. So if I let them lead, come up here and, embody me, then that's all truth. It's all truth because it's them. But if I can create separation and I know that in my heart and in truth, and I'm not unworthy, I'm a beautiful boy and I should have never started thinking that. I'm inherently worthy. I was born worthy. And somewhere along the line, it got questioned and conditioned in a different way. So when I now meet my shame, all these beliefs, one and the same, it doesn't take as much time to be with it because I know that it's a distorted message. So I come in and I go, is that true? Or what do you need? Or I will see who's driving that feels the most impacted. And if I'm not careful or if I'm neglecting the way that I show up for me and I'm not reparenting, then he'll be like, oi, Ash, fuck you, how dare you leave me? And I'll be dysfunctional and I'll do all the little behaviors that are been built on. That's why we say people have tantrums. It's just a child response because that's the part of them that's gotten hit, right? And we didn't get in to protect them quick enough. So then we react. That's going to be around forever. It's like to say we're going to get rid of triggers. They'll be there. It just will be navigated very differently.
And I love the model. You took me right back to South Pacific just then. So for those who are listening along who don't know what we're talking about, South Pacific Private it was the rehab that I went to. Jackson has been a therapist there, and there's this really beautiful model. It's Pia Melody's model, which you've been talking to, but I want to unpack the sentence that you just shared because I think that I knew exactly what you were doing, but I think most people would have missed it. Explain to me how you shared the way you would have felt, because what I noticed there was no blaming, there was identifying, there was calling out what happened, and then you really came back to how it made you feel rather than being like and pointing the finger at the person, in this made up example, me not showing up for this podcast. So can you kind of just like unpack it a little bit for people, because I think that they'll get a lot out of that.
Yeah. And I will preface it with, it's not necessarily easy when, again, if we have our whole life is based on our experiences. I always say this, it's like David and Goliath. It's like Goliath has been in the gym pumping weights for life. And then David, who's the guy that can be really functional and healthy and communicate effectively and believes that they're worthy and that none of that stuff is actually real, looks at a dumbbell and goes, what the hell is that? And then tries to take on Goliath. He's going to lose all the time, round after round after round, until they start to build up more and more of that muscle. So Goliath has been doing reps of you're not good enough, and this is how we respond to that for your whole life. It's much more conditioned and it's definitely much stronger. So David needs to get into the gym essentially, right? David needs to start building these muscles so at least there can be a challenger to it. So a very, very healthy way, once we're able to start to navigate how I'm going to even tackle Goliath and even confront this conditioned dude, then, which really is just the wounded part of us, right? And how they show up to protect and keep us defended and survive, is we can step into essentially like healthier boundaries, which, to break it down really, really simply, it's being able to share when I notice, experience, see, or saw ... So when I notice, Ash, arrive, never show, right? That is the preface. We don't need too much of the story, which a lot of people love to give when we get stuck in story.
Yes.
So that's the facts. That's the data that we're working with. You didn't come. The next step that normally happens is you did this, you are this, you're wrong, point, and this is how you made me feel, right? If we even get to feeling, which is, again, not a lot of people get to. So instead, we're keeping it all in the I, right? So when I notice this happen, which is just data from my perception, my experience only, because the other person doesn't really matter how they see it. This is my reality, it's my experience. The next phase is then going, what I think about me, which isn't a feeling, it's a thought, which people also get very confused with. The thought, which is what actually the impact that happens from it. Ash leaving, Ash not showing up is probably going to hit me harder if I've had heaps of people in my life not show up before. So it's got nothing to do with Ash. In the bigness of the belief that I've decided that this is what this means. And this is the difference between what is actually a trigger and what is just information data that's happening. Not showing up is not the trigger. The trigger is the impact that has on me. So when I think about me, what I think about me when Ash has left me is I'm not good enough for Ash, which is much, much older. If it's hysterical, it's historical, right? So if it's really, really big, it's probably really, really old. And then that thought is what creates my feelings. Plain and simple. It didn't make me feel that. What I think made me feel. So it's mine. It's still in the I. I think I'm not good enough, which was probably not Ash's intention. Doesn't matter. To me, that's what I thought. And that thought creates my emotions. And then that emotion, which might be pain and shame as I expressed, will dictate what I do. Then that emotion will create my behavior. So to do it in a really healthy way, I've now only used I. And then, and again, this is on video, but I'll try and depict it in the audio as well. But it's like, if I say, when you didn't arrive for me, you didn't care about me and you don't really appreciate my time and it's not valuable to you and you need to do better. She's gonna defend herself, even if she knows that that's the case, because I'm accusing her. I'm literally pointing at you, right? So your heckles are going to go up even if you're in the wrong because it's combative. It's intensive, right? So when I notice, blah, 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 this is what I think about me. This is what I feel. It's very disarming. You know, you can't, there's not much for you to move. You just go, oh, fuck. And all I'm trying to really share with you, Ash, is this is important enough for me to want to share with you because I want you to see me and that I'm impacted.
That's what I love about this model and this framework to be able to communicate with somebody is you're letting yourself be seen. And when you put your wall down and you show that other person your vulnerable side, it is much, much harder for them to meet you with that combative nature, that anger, that defensiveness, which is often what happens in relationship, right? One person gets their back up, then the other, and it's just this, you either turn away from each other and ice each other out, or you go to war and you fight. Neither option is really that helpful.
Yeah, war plus war doesn't equal peace.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Thank you for sharing that. Gosh, that took me right back to...
Yeah. And the bonus, which they did sometimes in that place, but not as much as they should, is you can do that whole thing on yourself. So if you've just gone and relapsed or you've just gone and done the chasing again of the guy that's not interested in you, for example, when I noticed that I went back to a place that I don't like, what do I think about me? This triggers that I'm not worthy, that I'm unlovable, that I'm powerless. And I feel angry, pain, fear, shame. And this is what, therefore, I need. You're actually holding yourself accountable, not just the people around you that are important to you. So I always like to share that as well, because it's a way of being able to reality check yourself too. And then really, really importantly, which I think is important to like make sure we keep it super safe, is the dysfunctional shit probably potentially in your family systems. You might think that they're going to be able to potentially hear and hold you in your new boundaries and your new way of communicating. But they might not. So we've got to be really intentional about, does this person have the capacity to even be able to hold some feedback that is letting them see me? And do I want to give them that much of my energy? If someone's yelling at me in the street from across the road, I don't need to share that they made me, that this created a I'm not good enough experience for me and this is what I need. They're not important to me. So they don't deserve that sort of level of connection and opportunity to repair with me.
Such an important point, isn't it? And what would you recommend for somebody? It was a family member who had been yelling at them, and they, are more embodied, and they then tried to communicate this back, but the person just wasn't receiving it. How could they then hold themselves, soothe their inner child, discharge that energy? What would you recommend?
I guess first and foremost, before going straight into the sharing, it's like inviting someone to the table with it. So can I share with you something that's important to me? If that's a no, then that's a no. And you've got to respect that. And then you might say, well, when is a good time? And then that's how you would go about that. So I guess that's really, really important, rather than just like, when I notice, straight away trying to, you're not going to be mad. Also, the right time, it's like if they're in their anger and they're really offline, sharing a reality is like sharing a reality to a 3-year-old at that point. They don't understand the language of any language because they're offline. So I think that's really, really important too. But I guess when you look at all of this work, there's a need that's not been met. All of our emotions essentially come with needs. So I felt pain when Ash was a no-show today.
Just to be clear, I did show up.
She did. She's here. In my imagination, right? But in that scenario, when Ash doesn't show up, I've lost my train of thought.
The emotion that comes with that.
Yeah, right, is the need. Sorry, yes. So when I share and really think about it, the emotion is pain. And when I'm in pain, I need comfort and nurture, right? If I'm willing to share that with Ash, then I'm already meeting myself with enough, like with quite a nice comforting thing, because I'm using my voice and I'm expressing myself. I then might get a response because I've shared what I might need from Ash. Be really mindful next time, because it's really important to me that you show up. Then she might meet me in that pain, which will give me some comfort and some nurture. When that's not going to be available, or I can't share this sort of experience with anybody else, there's still going to be an emotion there, which is driving why I want to act on anything. What's the emotion? If it's pain, we need comfort and nurture. If it's fear, we need safety and protection. If it's anger, we need an outlet and some space. If it's shame, we need compassion, right? And the rest, right? But I think each one is trying to tell you something. And then what would that look like to go? And even deeper into the work is, what did I need but I never got? And then how can I do that for me? No one else is going to probably do that for you. And if we get stuck in the way that I'm making sure others can do it for me, we're in a codependent relationship anyway. So we've got to learn to be able to meet ourselves.
You've taken me right where I wanted to go. Let's talk about codependency, Jackson, because you identify as being in recovery from codependency. I think a lot of people assume it is one thing when in fact it is something probably completely different to what they perceive. So could you please, let's start by perhaps defining it in the way that feels good for you, and even maybe sharing some examples of your own behaviors to perhaps give some people the opportunity to identify. And then I'd love to understand your pathway to recovery.
Awesome. Big question. Codependency is, such a big place in my heart for my own, in everything. It touches everything in my life. And I think those two things, self-worth and codependency, are just beautifully tied together. And trauma is just a combination of those two things. So when I break it down, I always use this example metaphor of understanding. So let's say Ash and myself are in a beautiful, loving relationship, and we're out one night and she doesn't have a jumper on and I've got my jumper on. If I wasn't codependent, right, I'd probably suggest that she go and put on her jumper. But if I was codependent, I wouldn't just offer my jumper to keep her warm. I'd light myself on fire to keep her warm.
Yep.
So for the people that I love or that I'm hoping to love or to love me, I will light myself on fire in order to keep them warm, because that will mean that I can't be left, or my needs are being met, that I am fulfilling something, that therefore I am now worthy. While I slowly burn, I don't care as long as they're warm. And if everything about my whole value system is based on them, then as long as they're warm. Now, what ends up happening is we slowly start to burn out. We get resentful, we get depressed, we get the opposite, different side of the same coin of a codependent is sometimes a narcissist. So we then get no capacity to people please and help and care and love and extra support and do every single love language all at one time just to make sure that they're loved. So we feel loved. Is when we burn out from all that, then we're not getting our needs met. So we then control, figure out, manipulate, find a way to get that met, or jump into our avoidance, run away, figure out all the different ways how we're going to return to a place of worthiness. So that's definitely the metaphor that I kind of go to. And yeah, I'm describing me. So how does that make sense to you? Does that
Totally.
kind of land?
I think when I look at codependency, because I think the misconception is obviously like you're codependent when you have to always be with that other person, but it's not necessarily about that at all. Like what I notice, I think when I was in South Pacific, I definitely identified with a lot of the codependency traits that were presented in front of me. It definitely wasn't my primary, but it could have easily been a secondary. And I really identify with changing myself to please another person to keep them, like, to make them stay. And again, I think that comes back to like the core wound and even staying far longer than I'm meant to, which you sort of touched on right at the start of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think as well, people don't necessarily grasp is just how severe that can be. And I love that your metaphor touched on that, because it literally for some people can be life or death. That degree of self-abandoning in order to keep someone needing you can very literally kill you.
Yeah, it almost did a few times. And I think when it comes to that being my primary addiction, and I look at it as an addiction, and unfortunately that addiction is very hard because it's addiction to people, right? So they're everywhere. It's very hard to be in recovery and abstinent from connection. It would also kill us, right? So the recovery path, I think, is like really, really, really challenging and, one of the hardest because of that fact. So for me, I was so good at doing every other addiction because it would help me be okay with the fact that I wasn't back in relationship, or that I didn't quite have them close enough to the fire. So I would cope with, whatever it might be, with drugs and alcohol. So I was like, it doesn't matter what addiction I went down, I'd still be a raging codependent primarily. So I would say that I was definitely an addict in lots of different things, and I can still very much be that. It's codependency always came first, and it was always somehow masking the codependency. So that's sort of my kind of recovery. And I think it looks and shapes in lots of different ways, and it's super subtle. If you're an alcoholic and you keep drinking and falling over, it's there. But as it shows up in that photo, and has it shown up even more recently, it's like I was taught and conditioned that separation equaled disconnection. So if we look at like enmeshment, we look at these ideas of like classing my hands together, intertwining, and like that meant safety. That meant we were good. We were together, and there was a lot of fire and intensity, desperation for it to stay locked and intertwined like this. And naturally, because of the force that brings, as it starts to separate, we find ourselves with these gaps. So we unlock our intertwining. We have these gaps in between. And no one wants to have those gaps. So we either find a different person who's got gaps wide open to go and interlock again with them, or we find our way back in the interlocking with that person. And that can be very, very subtle. So I learned that separation means I'm going to lose something. Separation means my worth's going to be in question. Separation means that I can't fix and save and rescue and find a way to no longer be uncomfortable. What I still meet is that actually, if I really look at all my healing and really look at where I'm at now, separation allows for connection. When I create separation between me and them, or the parts of me that are freaking out about not having complete calm, if I can create separation with me and myself in those experiences, or me and my partner, then it's what allows for more connection. That's such a hard thing that still shows up in my life. And that's the subtle nature and conniving bitch of the addiction of codependency, because it will keep coming up, because as soon as that little seed growing a little bit more, it's like, remember, you don't matter. So fix this problem. Get them out of their discomfort and dysfunction so that you're back in relationship with them again. Like, I will just keep showing that up in tiny little ways. And it's like, I remember in our couples therapy, my therapist said this to me, and it was like, if you were in addiction, you'd know you'd relapsed from drinking because you were drunk again, right?
Yeah.
But she was like, you relapsed. And I've been like, what do you mean? Like, I've been in recovery forever. Like, this isn't a thing. I don't necessarily relapse anymore. And she's like, yeah, you relapsed. And I'm like, and that's the, such a humbling powerlessness of this work is I still have these little minions that had their experiences, and they will do what it takes to survive. And they still sometimes think that worth is in question.
And so how do you catch yourself in a relapse? Is it having that therapist who can point out your dark spots? Is it having, is it 12-step? Is it sponsorship? Like, how do you stay accountable to that when it is so complex, especially being that you're engaged to somebody? So you're in relationship. I think as well, the same sort of thing, whether it's SLA or CODA or even to a degree ACOA, which are all 12-step fellowships I'm mentioning, by the way. It, you know, it's a lot of the time they'll say, well, just abstain for a period of time until you strengthen the muscle and work on the self-worth and work on the negative core beliefs. And then when you come from a healed place in a functional adult space, you can step back into relationship. You've clearly done the work. Now you've gotten to this point where you're in relationship. But of course, if it's really deeply ingrained and you're a human, which you are, then the stuff's going to come up again. Do you have warning signs? Do you have like behaviors that you are aware of that you can catch yourself out on? Does your partner reflect any of that back? I'm really curious.
Look, there's an advantage that I'm constantly in this work, right? I'm an embodiment of the work, and I'm an embodiment of my self-worth model, which has been designed because of my recovery and adapted from everything that I've ever learned in that way. So for me, it's like, I really do live and breathe it every day, which is obviously a really nice way to stay accountable. And, I honor this work with everyone that I see also helped me stay accountable. So that isn't everybody's luxury, I guess. But I guess to break it down for everyone is like, I really have, I guess, taken back the word self-care. Self-care is like trauma informed. It's become a very, very big buzzword, and that loses its meaning a lot of the time. So for me, when I look at self-care, it's what are the 6 things that I do that are non-negotiable for me every week? And when they're not when they're not happening, I notice. So like, that's what makes them non-negotiables. They have to happen across a different variety of things. It might be how I slow down, how I connect, what's fun, what do I love, what's good for my mental health, my physical health, and then just an overall well-being. And then 6 different things that kind of make that up, some in different frequencies. That to me is a boundary that I set with myself when I do it. When I go to the gym, it's a boundary that I'm choosing to look after myself. And what I add to that is when I choose to put that boundary in place and look after myself, I matter. I'm good enough. I'm lovable. I'm proving it to myself multiple times, sometimes a day and a week, that every single time I do self-care, this is the boundary and the David's weights in the gym moment to say, Goliath, you're full of shit. And this is no longer true. Look how many times that I build evidence for the fact that we are worthy. So that's like the most fundamental. And honestly, that is the number one thing that gets my clients well, is being so radically non-negotiable about putting themselves first and really clearly defining that these are the boundaries that I set, which start to make all those little noises and voices and parts of our little wounds and adaptions be met and heard and understood and seen. And that means over time, I'm able to really sit with that in a lot more way. And they know that I put them first. So when they're really noisy and they do get triggered, a lot of the time it's like that Snickers ad, you're not you when you're hungry, right? It's like I rather than being really existential crisis-y, which I can do, I go, did you fucking sing and dance? Because that's one of your daily non-negotiables, right? Did you get 8 hours of sleep and go to bed at this time, right? Did you go to the gym today? I'll look at that first and foremost, right? And recovery is so important in terms of whether you're a 12-stepper, whether you're in addiction or recovery, it doesn't actually matter. Whether you don't identify with any of that shit, it's still this reclamation and honoring of what I do for me and what it means, actually making it mean something that creates, I think, the biggest change. And it's about that will determine whether or not I relapse. That'll determine whether the scaffolding is there for me to fall onto as opposed to continuing to fall into the pit.
It's like I completely agree with everything you've just shared, and it is so essential to be able to, like I said earlier, put your own oxygen mask on first, have your non-negotiables, the things that you do for you to rebuild that self-esteem, that self-worth, and to heal. But I also think that there is a fine line. I feel like, it's always the pendulum swinging, right? And I feel like what I'm starting to see come out now is almost like a swing way too far to the other side, where people are like, I'm not doing that because I don't feel like it, or I'm not going to show up for you because and it's like, I think it's so important to find the nuance. And, like I always use the example of, if my husband's got a work Christmas party, I'm telling you right now, the last thing I want to do is go to that work Christmas party, but I'm going to show up for him because it's important. Now, are there instances where maybe he wants to go to something else that's a social occasion that's not that important? Bad example, because that would probably never happen with my husband, but say it were the case. Then I could say no, because I know that, maybe I'm really tired. I haven't had my 8 hours sleep. It's been a big week and I know that I need that nourishment for me. So I think it's, it's learning as well where to meet yourself, when it is important to perhaps show up for your loved ones and not necessarily when you want to. And as well, just show up for others in service. Like being part of 12-step recovery service is really important to me. And I know time and time again that when I'm showing up for women, when I don't want to, that's generally when I actually get the most reward from that act of service. When I'm showing up at a meeting, even though I'm a bit tired and I'd rather just be in front of the couch watching Netflix, when I'm taking that phone call, when I'm getting outside of myself, I think that there is a greater payoff. So I think I don't want people to hear our conversation today thinking, well, I'm just going to put myself first, and that's the solution. Because I actually don't. I think there's a nuance in that as well.
And I think the discernment around that is important, but it comes with like calling yourself out on your own bullshit. Like because I'll fuck around with my non-negotiables as well. Like I'll go, we're not going to the gym today. And there's actually tons where that's the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And there's other times where I'm like, you are full of shit. Like you are making up so much sort of excuses. So I think that there's a lot of accountability that this sort of brings, rather than a chore list, but I bet definitely a lot of accountability. And then the other part is like, this isn't a wall that you put up with other people so that you don't ever slip back into some sort of pattern of people pleasing ever again in your life. If you're doing that, the opposite of dysfunction is more dysfunction, right? So that when we check ourselves, it's like, and then Pia's model will talk a lot about this. It's like, it's got to be in moderation, right? If I'm too much in my controlling, then I'm going to be in the dysfunction. And if I'm feeling out of control, then I'm also in my dysfunction, right? So it's like the sweet spot around that and actually having integrity around what's true and not true. And the interesting question, I guess, for you, I have, Ash, is a really cool book called Boundary Boss. The name, I'll text it to you, but it speaks about how she was saying no to weddings and would get to this level, like you said, like, and I
Wow.
guess my question is like, what would need to happen for you actually not to go to that Christmas party?
If I was sick, if I was genuinely like unwell and I needed to rest, if there was something in my life that I deemed to be, if maybe like a parent had fallen unwell and I needed to be at the hospital or my family needed me. But I think the yardstick that I'm using to measure right now is just the whether or not you can be fucked.
Yeah, yeah,
And if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
coming down to a fact of, well, I just can't be bothered because I don't want to sit and talk to people that I, don't know, and especially because I'm a sober person, and that can be really exhausting. If it's important to the person I love, then it's important to me.
Yeah, and I guess it's being able to have both of these lenses
Yeah.
that's really what creates the functional, authentic version of ourselves, right? And that's
Yeah.
the polarity of life. Because it's like, if I'm really burnt out, and yes, it's so important to you, like my partner misses a bunch of stuff. And I know how important it is for me for her to come, but I know how much more important it is for her to not keep slipping back into a place that's just in that dysfunctional thing where, and open communication really helps with that. And yeah,
Totally.
she'll also wear that it really lets me down.
Mm.
But then we move through that. So the discernment, the neutrality, the ownership of, the polarity of life, I think it's all what makes us, you know, functional humans, and why we can also have so much compassion for like the fuckets when we don't want to even consider any of those things and you just go, no, and I have a lot of compassion for the rat bags within me that are like that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Jackson, you've mentioned non-negotiables a few times, and that leads me to this question that I love to wrap up our interviews on. And that question is, what are your three? So rather than, I know you mentioned you had about six there, I want you to give me your top three non-negotiables that allow you to live this embodied version of you that is now stepping out from behind the smile.
Cool. I feel like I already stole one, so I'm going to do four. But my first one, as I said before, was a sing and dance or listen to music every single day. It's just 100% non-negotiable in whatever way that looks. That's my daily one. So then the three is connection is number one. I mean, I don't like to score them, right? But connection for me is super, super sacred and the most important thing. That's connection with myself, but in this instance, I am talking about connection with others, my family and friends, whether it's on the phone or face to face. So that's number one for sure. Then I would say moving my body. I just know I've got a big bunch of energy in this system and ADHD. So I've got to move, So for me, it's exercise in whatever way that kind of looks. And then more and more and more importantly for me, as I sort of mentioned, I think the final boss for me in all of my healing is going to be powerlessness. So can I be okay with powerlessness? And what are my practices to be able to help me be okay with powerlessness? So it's slowing down. And a lot of the time that does look like a meditation practice, but other times it's just like, what am I doing intentionally that slows me down? If I had the life where I didn't have to work and I could choose what I wanted and I didn't have to worry about anything, how would I sip my coffee differently?
Mm.
Is so available for me, where if that's 5 more minutes that I took to do something within reason, then take it, So rather than exact practice, these devotional practices of non-negotiable, that's something that's probably more of a philosophy of like, let's be non-negotiable about keeping that really fresh in my mind.
I love that. I love that. It is. And you can apply that literally to every single area of your life.
Everything,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so good. Jackson, I have loved this conversation today, and I know that our audience will as well. If they want to track you down, find out more, where should they go?
Honestly, the big, I mean, I think this will maybe drop just before, but It Ends With Us is my retreat that I think every single person should do on the planet. It's definitely a big homecoming. It's literally It Ends With Us, creating legacies that really ripple. So that is like the thing. It's like all my work in one place. And then I hang out not as much on Instagram, but I obviously do play that game a little bit, and that's where you can kind of find me. And I love talking to people in the DMs and yeah, very available in there for people that are conscious and intention and aligned. So you can find me there too.
Amazing. I'll make sure that I pop all of that information in the show notes. So if people want to track out the retreat or your IG, then they can head straight to the show notes. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one needs suffer in silence. So I cannot thank you enough for your time and for everything that you do, Jackson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, and thank you for holding such an awesome space. And I'm really glad we got to do this, and I'm sure we could have talked for hours. So I really appreciate
Already thinking about a part 2, don't you worry. Yes, this will not be the last time we speak. Thanks so much, Jackson.
Love that. Thank you.